I will tell you the story about the habits I had developed near the beginning of my career, which I had to correct later to become a better programmer. There will be 5 issues, 3 of which you can see in this code. The other 2 damaging habits I developed later when I started fixing my code. That part was funny. Let's write this method again, and then you will see the mistakes as I make them. This method integrates with GitHub API to discover the README on various repositories. That could be a useful feature in some projects, I guess. Writing its implementation will quickly bring us to the first bad habit I want to outline. Still, the implementation began mildly. There is an HTTP client with an optional personal access token generated by GitHub. In case you wish to try this code, this is how you create an access token. Go to your GitHub profile settings and choose Developer Settings. Pick the Token's Classic option and generate a new token. Give it a name and an expiration date. You can select the capabilities of the token here. Since I only plan to query the public repositories on GitHub, I choose the public repo scope. Go down to the bottom, press the button to generate the token, and there it is. Store the token in a safe place. GitHub will not show you the token value again. Now back to code. The method must save the requested number of README files from public repos. GitHub API works with pages of repositories. This is the query for one page of C# repositories with more than 10 stars. If the query fails, I quit. The time has come to unveil the first bad habit I used to have. Clever control flow. Quitting early is the first symptom of convoluted control flows that will eventually lead to numerous bugs. Then there comes a nested loop. Nested loops also qualify as a clever control flow. For example, what is the condition that quits both loops simultaneously? Oh, that happens more often than you may think at first. There will be a lot to do here, like parsing JSON and isolating the repository owner and the name. Another clever control flow element follows when I use continue and break statements to control the loop. The problem here is not with continue and break alone. I still use them regularly today. The problem is that I have just used them inside a complex loop, where it becomes very hard to understand all the consequences of breaking the regular flow. The code continues. I'm looking for a section in README containing the phrase getting started. Again, I quit early. And another break from the nested loop if enough files were saved to disk. Hoping all these jumping instructions will serve me well, I return the number of documents saved to disk. This code is too smart for what I consider good today. Still, that is how I used to code many years ago. It's not that you cannot make this code work. You can, of course. The problem is that there will be new requirements that will jeopardize everything you succeeded in. And the requirements will come, don't worry. That is how I developed the second related habit, complicated return paths. The request is to let the user retry and abort upon an intermittent error. There is a try-catch block with a lot of code inside. This is the problematic statement. There is a funny return right in the middle of a try-catch inside a loop nested inside another loop. It would give up everything and terminate the entire method. Returning from the middle of a large method has proven to be an eternal source of strange bugs. I have nothing against returning from the middle of a small method, but the situation is different with the large methods. I don't see the end of the method, and so I cannot tell if there is any cleanup work at the end, which I skip now. Conversely, if I went to the bottom to add something there, then that early return wouldn't be visible on the screen. I might easily forget to account for it. The problems you saw so far are about control flow. But another issue has grown along. The third damaging habit I had developed over time was to put unrelated pieces of code together, all in the name of keeping it simple. Simplicity doesn't work that way. Take this line as an example. It is setting the authorization HTTP header. Now how does that belong in this method? It is a part of HTTP, a transport protocol. And look at this query. It is packed with the API implementation details. Why not just pass in the page number instead? Further down below we find JSON parsing. This method spans all the layers of software on which it runs. All the layers are here in one place. This concludes the story of the 3 habits I had to correct, or my code would rot and die. And I corrected them, oh I did. With all the fierceness and motivation, I cut this code into isolated pieces. That is how I developed the brand new damaging habit that took me years to figure out and correct. I will re-implement this entire method from scratch to show you that. Please note that you can download the entire source code from my Patreon page before and after the redesign. Every registered patron is helping hundreds of other developers watch all the videos on my channel for free. You can find the links in the description. Now, the idea in an improved design is to provide a class that wraps access to the GitHub API. This class will manage HTTP access privately, it will accept the token and manage it as well. Then come the URLs, which I will format here. At one point in my career, I started seeing such concrete, detailed logic as a big issue. That is the 4th habit I wanted to talk to you about. I started to rely too much on abstractions. The abstraction for repos, the abstract specification, and whatnot. The API client would be pure and beautiful, but that approach was wrong. Nowadays, I let abstractions grow from below. One day, multiple similar implementations might grow into an abstraction. This is a very powerful and general method. That is what you get when you strike the right level of abstractness. It will return an asynchronous, endless sequence of GitHub repos identified by the owner and the name. In the future, we can change the query filter, and the method will return different repositories, but the method itself would remain the same. At the calling end, we simply instantiate the client, possibly with a token. Then the process will begin by awaiting each pair of owner and repository name before loading the README file. Can you see how the entire code changes? I didn't invent any interfaces, specifications, or query builders, nothing. It's just a single class that does the job. How will I obtain the README files then? Well, those would be the instances of another simple class, which I will call Markdown. It will offer a handy method to extract the headings, because that's what I'm doing in my application. Obtaining the Markdown file is then straightforward. See if it's there, execute the HTTP request, decode it, and return it. Code almost writes itself when you separate concerns. You don't need abstractions to do that, as you can see. The consuming method may retain some of its original complexity again, but far, far less than what it used to be. The dirtiest parts are now in other classes. It was a big thing for me to learn to stop inventing needless, counterproductive abstractions. The abstractions will come later, at their own time, which ultimately led me into the last trap I want to outline in this video. The trap of calling it done. This code isn't too good. Any new feature would cause a lot of code duplication because I would keep writing similar, if not identical, portions of code again. The last habit is the one I didn't have. I learned to end every development session with a refactoring. Give expressions their names. Distribute responsibilities across methods and classes where they belong naturally. Extract utilities and simplify the control flow. Not only will your application be easier to manage, but you will start reusing methods written a long time ago, even without realizing what made you write those methods in the first place. The abstractions will grow organically, improving your project's chances of success in the long run. I would like to hear about your habits and the traps you used to fall into during the early stages of your career. These were the ones I found in my work, and this video was a chance to tell how I changed myself over time.